Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. A very warm welcome to Meet Menaca, celebrating you. Today is the episode 83, Balancing Motherhood and Career with Jayashree Anthony, who is a founder of Master Brain Academy. So, why are we talking about balancing motherhood and career? First of all, in the UK, we are celebrating Mother's Day today. So, for all the women out there who are mothers, stepmothers, grandmothers, aunts, all of you, a very happy Mother's Day today. As women, including myself, I know the perils of trying to balance a career and motherhood. Of course, there are days when we feel that we have been stretched to that limit and in so many different directions. Not only we are trying to keep up at work, but we are also trying to hold it all together at home and with children. And the likelihood is that we spend most of the time feeling guilty and on an empty tank. So many women have spoken. Even recently, when I spoke in the parliament, so many women have openly spoken about the dreaded mommy guilt and the feeling of overwhelm and stress from trying to split the time and the energy and the efficiency between work and the family. But hearing from different personal experiences, it is also possible to have a flourishing career and family life. We are going to talk to one such person who is Jayashree Anthony today on the show. She will be talking about what are the challenges she faced in this journey and also how did she overcome them and what strategies she has used to get there in the first place. Today, before I go into explaining why we chose Jayashree to come and speak today, let me talk a bit about the talk show itself. So it's a 90-minute multicultural free talk show just with the aim of making a positive difference individually and collectively. It is about experts coming and sharing their knowledge and wisdom, and also real people coming and talking about real stories. You can join us by registering. We usually share our link on all social medias. But if you want to know anything more, please reach out to us on meet@menaca.co. Or you can go to the website menaca.co and there's a section called Meet Menaca. You can have a look as well. Please do support us and bring yourself to become a change maker yourself by subscribing to the YouTube channel where you can find the library of all the old episodes of Meet Menaca Talk Show. You will be helping us to help others. Now let's dive deep into why we chose Jayashree Anthony to come and speak about today. She founded Master Brain Academy in 2003. The academy provides high quality educational support for the children in Essex. Originally, the academy started off with teaching abacus, the first of its kind in the UK, and later moved on to preparing children for grammar school entrance exams. I think all parents will relate to it. Most of us have gone through that stage of preparing children for grammar school. Brain Academy was selected as a best practice representative and was featured in the Parliamentary Review 2021 with 3 teaching academies and looking to further into expanding its portfolio. Jayashree and her team thrive around developing and nourishing the minds of today's children, the future of tomorrow. So who better to talk about motherhood and career? A very warm welcome to you, Jayashree.
Thank you very much, Menaca.
So firstly, can I ask Jayashree, as a woman, as a mother, what are the challenges that women face in balancing career and family?
First of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be celebrating Mother's Day with all of you, and it's a great opportunity. And in fact, since the time I knew I'm going to be participating in this session, it was definitely an eye-opener to look back at all those years of work and effort, and think about womanhood, think about motherhood, think about things that we've done, and you think you've actually climbed a huge mountain even without noticing it. So it was a great opportunity to kind of look back and see where we are standing today. So thank you very much, Menaca, and the Meet Menaca team as well for having given me this opportunity. So when you talk about challenges, I think the first challenge is the mind, the mindset. So in order to understand the very first challenge is when a child is born, be it a girl child or a daughter or a son, the parents set the benchmarks of the destination. You've got to be this, you've got to be that, you've got to become an engineer, you've got to be a doctor, and so on and so forth. And we take our children to school. We make sure that they study well, and if you don't study well, you're being questioned. So literally, it's the same whether it's a girl or a boy, and the destination is far set. So as a mother, when you become a mother, you do see the destination of your career, but yet you realize that there are a lot of hurdles that you were never told about. And it's that point in time you've got to recalibrate your life, because in a woman's life, you have your husband, your children, and everything has got to be readjusted, which was never spoken about. So coming to terms with all that, and yet seeing your far-fetched dreams and vision for which you become kind of robotic to achieve, that becomes a struggle. But yet, if a woman wants to achieve, you still progress. It's the managing of the daily life, of managing your child, your family, making sure you provide just not the monetary and physical benefits, but the emotional support as well. And the woman is a person who actually holds it all together. It's that kind of a fulcrum that actually brings it all together. And if that base is weak, your family is more sort of to crumble. So I think that's the challenge that I face, and I think most women face in terms of juggling around and finding the priority. That's an everyday struggle, I would say.
Thanks, Jayashree. Really beautifully put. When you say it's the mindset, do you think it is the mindset of women to begin with? That's the struggle itself, because we expect us to be the best professional, best wife, best parent. We want to be the best in everything. And what is perfect? There's no perfect in the real world. I often say marriage and children, the only two things come without no manual. We learn on the job. So, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, right? That is one thing. And I think we criticize ourselves firstly, more than anybody else. Then, of course, there's a family dimension. Then there's a societal dimension. There's a professional dimension. There are so many parts of the puzzle. So when you say it is difficult, do you think there is a wide range of factors which impact on it?
True, it is a wide range of factors, and at the end of the day, you want the best outcome in all of them. If it's your child's care, if it's your child's education, you want the best. And if it's your dinner table, again, you've got to meet it out and be the best. And you have a boss at work, it's your career, you want to be the best. So the issue is you want to be the best of all. And the rest is, of course, there's no rest. You just try to push your benchmarks and your standards. And I think that's the struggle. The struggle is also when you see yourself actually not being able to meet out on your set targets. That's the issue.
Correct. I totally agree with you, because I think best compared to what, right? Because I think we set our benchmark to an impossible level. No wonder we then feel guilty and feel that we have failed in what we are set to do. Thank you so much, Jayashree. So what would you say are the key ingredients that are required to bring about a fine balance? We know it's a difficult task. You want to say in your personal life or in people who you love, or like you have noticed who have found that balance. What are the key ingredients you would say?
See, the first thing is in order to have a great career and also a balance with what's happening in the family, it's important to have a firm foundation. When I say firm foundation, you need the right backup. It could be in the form of your children, it could be in the form of your partner, it could be in the form of parents or friends. You really need a good support in order to get there. The second most important thing is to identify exactly what you really need and how you're going to achieve it. Because if you do not identify what you so desire, you're going to lose the direction, and you're going to be searching for things where you actually aren't heading anywhere. So identifying the sole purpose of what you want to achieve and finding the means to achieve that is important. The next most important thing is to keep carefully prioritizing, constantly prioritizing, whether it is the need of the hour, what is important, which one supersedes the other. And I think that constant tallying up is essential, because what seems to be a priority today might not be a priority in about 2 weeks' time. So that flexibility to kind of gauge and move on is essential. Another fundamental thing for a career woman and a mother is to look out for opportunities, because they are very rare, and to find the finest opportunity to actually kind of hit it on. And that's what I meant when I said, identify what you need. Because if you do know what you exactly need, when an opportunity spurns up, you would exactly be able to hit it on. So it's essential to kind of put it all together. And these, I think, are the key factors in order to succeed.
Thank you. When we look out, we always seem to think there are women who have got it all right. We then think we haven't got it right. But I think what you said is so important. It is about evaluating and readjusting and prioritizing according to what is important for you and what is important for people you're giving the care to. There's no universal standard, isn't it? Like what is right for somebody else might not be right for you. And that's why it's important to evaluate and reevaluate and prioritize and readjust your life according to what is required out of you. Would you agree, Jayashree?
It is, definitely. But obviously, one more thing is when people, there's two dimensions to the view of what people see. From outside, yes, we see the success, yes, we see happiness, and yes, you see all that's nice and glorious. But what's gone into the making of it, the second half of it, the what's happening behind the screen is a lot of work, being tired, being exhausted, crashing, tears, not being lost. But obviously, when you kind of go through and reach what you want to achieve, what people see is something that's totally different, as in myself today. So yes, you have to constantly relook at your plans and what you want to do. And sometimes letting go is so important, even if something is so close to heart. The willingness to let go must be there, because you can lose to win. And which is why I did mention you'll have to prioritize, because there was a point in time when I actually left my job, and it was not something that I wanted to do, but I had to do because I had to let go. And I think it just kind of worked quite well. And another thing that we should also is be prepared to fall down, be prepared to get hurt, because without being hurt, I don't think you can rise up and stand tall and firm. So yes, this is going back to what I think are key ingredients to actually being successful. Success is not always sweet. There's a back end story to it where it involves a lot of other things as well.
100%, I agree, because I know you should talk about the Instagram lifestyle we lead, and behind the scenes there is a lot of tears, hard work, a lot of difficulties and loss. As you said, it's not easy. People see others climbing up the ladder or having a successful business or being on the limelight, but people often don't see the difficulties, the difficult path people have crossed to be there. And I think mothers are no exception. So thank you so much for that. Jayashree, the other thing I wanted to touch upon is, as an educator, I'm sure you might have noticed shortcomings in parenting styles by mothers in career and their counterpart. There's no right recipe or wrong recipe. We have close friends and family who are on both spectrum. What are your thoughts about it?
Okay, it's quite an interesting question because, okay, now I'm going to have the hat of a educator as a teacher. And when I put the hat of a teacher, and you look at many children coming into class, and you can clearly distinguish between a child who has had a parent who's at home and a parent who's just not having a career, but having an excellent career and kind of high up and far-fetched. So these kind of children are many times, this possibly isn't all, I'm just possibly a handful of children, but you do find that they are a little lost. And when I say lost, is the parents are so much sunk into their careers that they actually lose sight of the child. They try the best, they do the best, they put the best effort, but is that what is needed? There's something more, and that's called mothering. There's an element of mothering that links up the child with the mother in order to be able to cope and work and nurture. I think the nurturing element is what is a little bit sacrificed, I would say. But there are great parents who actually will go to work, but they do need to burn the midnight oil, stretch it, in order to nurture the child and nurture the career. But I guess with lifestyles and careers and jobs, it's pretty complex. But I do find there is a slight difference. But of course, dads come in handy as well. So I think it's that mutual effort that actually plays a part in it.
It's a very interesting view on it. I don't have to go too far to look at both spectrums. I have very close friends who are homemakers, or who in fact did dentistry with me and decided to give up their careers and be at home and look after their children. And as a child, I grew up with one. My mom went to university early 60s. It was very few people at that time went to university and gave up her career to look after us. Here is me. I have been in different areas. I've been a married woman who looked after my child. I have been a single mom who looked after the child. I have been also a mom who was in a different relationship and looked after the child. So I have been through different spectrums. However, I think there is enough evidence to show a lot of career women's children have a lot of structure in their life. Yeah. And they go on to achieve much better and do, because obviously I wouldn't be here if my mom didn't put in all the hard work. Of course, I love my dad. I respect my dad a lot. People who know me, they know I'm really connected to my dad. But for who I am today and my brother is today, I give most of the credit to my mom. I totally agree with you, Jayashree. It is a difficult act, difficult balance to carry. But I think there's more pieces in the puzzle which affect the child than just a working mom or non-working mom. That's my take on it.
No, definitely.
Yeah, like you said, it is how collaborative the parents are with each other, how much responsibility both of them are taking on board to do it, and how as a society, how they are supporting the children. Do they have the societal support? I truly believe it is about the quality of time you spend with the child than the quantity of time you spend with the child. Because you could be there 10 hours a day and not be able to spend that time in quality. And also it's again back to priorities, isn't it? As a mom, if you are going to be a person who is missing having a career, you are not fulfilled. As they said, you can't pour from an empty cup. You are not going to be giving your best. At the other end of the spectrum, some women are forced into working because of the circumstances. They would be rather happy just be at home and doing the job.
Exactly.
So I think it is so much more complex. That's what I'm getting at. So much more complex than saying this is better or that is better. And I think that's why it's important to talk about these things and have honest conversations to see what really works and what really don't, and how we can make little tweaks here and there with all pieces of the puzzles, all elements, and then see whether we can make it the best possible experience for children. What's your take on it, Jayashree?
Yeah, I think there's both positives as well. It's got its own downside as well as the positive in both cases. And I think it's all about finding the right mix of what is needed for that particular family, that particular individual, and based upon their desires of what they really want and the choices that they make to choose the elements of both and have it. Because if you chose what you really needed, I think that surfaces and you are going to be happy. So you've got to cherry pick what actually suits you from both the good sides of both.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that's the miracle mix, isn't it? It's choosing that. If you know that, then it will be easy. Whilst you're speaking, I was thinking about it. Whilst moms in career do struggle, what do you think is the silver lining to having a career as a woman, as a mother? You have done it, I have done it. So why are we doing it? What is the silver lining there?
Okay. Now, to understand that, the question then goes back to the fact that who was my role model? Every mother should ask, who was your role model? It would obviously be the mother itself, the mother's mother itself. I come from a family of working women. I've never had, including my grandmother. I've not come from I've never had anybody in my family, almost about 12 women. I've just counted them all yesterday. And I said, all of them are working or either just retired. And so they were the role models because women work in your family. And therefore, I also am deemed to work. I cannot see myself sitting at home. So you start off that. And what you then realize is the reason why when you work, a working mother is actually more well connected to the outside world. A working mother has knows what's happening. A working mother can see the opportunities looming up at that point in time. A working mother has so much of opportunities that they can provide for the child because the vision of the world is more broader, more open, and they are out and about, and the feet is out on the world, and the eyes is out around the world as well. So when you come back home, you bring all that information and you actually transcend it down to your children through opportunities, through education, through character building, through associations. So there's so many things that without our knowledge, our experiences, we give to the child without even knowing that we're actually teaching them. On the hindsight, being at home, you don't have a clue, you don't have a complete broader vision. You do, but it's possibly not the real one because you're not having set foot outside. There's a limitation on so much that you can provide. So I definitely think in terms of child nurturing, a working parent has more scope. Now, that doesn't say that people at home don't have enough scope to get information, because if they are social, are well connected through friends and other avenues, they can still provide it. But all I'm trying to say is there's more chances that when a working mother is working, there's more for them to give to the child because they automatically gain a lot. But there could be people who possibly turn a deaf ear to it and are actually not giving anything to the children as well. So it depends on how alert you want your child to have opportunities. And the second thing is children see the parents. A child who sees the parent and who sees the parent working and running from one corner to the other, juggling a lot of things, that becomes the way of life for that child. So the child already understands that's what life is all about. So when the child becomes an adult and a mother too, or a father, knows that the techniques and the kind of tricks of how to manage life, because they've seen it all. So I think that's the gain that children have from working parents.
Thank you, Jayashree. I think it's esoteric knowledge, isn't it? So many things we can learn from books, learn from experts, but this is something you live day in and day out, and it becomes your knowledge. It is very interesting because from what you said, I had totally the other spectrum. My grandmom was very well educated, multilinguistic. She went to a boarding school. My mom did the graduation. Both of them, for whatever reason, they never worked. Looking at my mom's colleagues and peers who reached very high positions in life, which my mom missed out, I think I intrinsically had that desire to become someone or to do something worthy in my life. My mom and my grandmother propelled that from very young age that you have to make a mark in whatever way it is. There's no barriers. You can reach wherever you want to reach. You can do whatever you want to do. They instilled that belief in me much, much earlier. When it comes to mothering, on the other side, flip coin, I would say my mom had perhaps paid more attention and given more time and energy and effort. She knew our syllabus. So many people still think she's a teacher back home because she was so involved with our careers, even in the school days. She knew the syllabus even better than us. I always tell for what my daughter has become, who she has become, I can't take as much as credit as how much credit I give to my mom for who I became, because I was caught up between the career and life and motherhood, whereas she had one mission and one mission only to make us someone worthy. But I do understand and agree with you about working mothers. I think that esoteric knowledge and being productive, not wasting time, you have to organize yourself, all that children automatically learn. You don't teach them, you don't sit and teach them, but children, like you said, mostly learn from what they see, not what we tell them. It's about what we show. I do agree with what you say there.
There's a little danger as well on the other side of the spectrum when you actually think about it, because there could be times when my daughter would say, "Oh my God, I cannot see myself doing as much as you. You're just crashing every time." So I think there is a safe limit if you want
100%.
them to do it.
100% is no different from mine. My daughter says, I'm like my mother for people who don't speak Tamil. I'm not like you. I'm not as driven because I think she feels that all I do is work at times, or in one form or the other, do this passion, that purpose, this career. So sometimes children also pick up what not to do, which is also a good thing, and to have a balance. Listening to you, I was thinking, having run this journey, and now when you look back, is there anything you wish you had or had not done?
The very first thing I regret actually is no matter what I know I've done for my family, my husband and daughter, I think I could have given time a little more. Definitely. I should have found more time to give them, because now I have a fantastic career. The career is there. The business is there. Everything is set out. But now when you see, my daughter's actually left home. The mothering is done. I cannot get it back. Right? But my career, if I had delayed it by about 3-4 years or reduced the pace, the speed of what I did, I could have gained that excess time to spend with children. At the end of the day, there is a limitation of, as a mother, you have limited time with your children when they are single. Once they leave the nest, they've left the nest. And they are literally not yours to its completeness, because the time that they spend is less. So I do believe that I could have given more time. I did give time, but whether it was quality time, as you said. Because when I'm with my child, there's either a phone call coming in, my mind is elsewhere. Physically, I am with the child. Mentally, I'm elsewhere. You're on holiday, you would have calls, you would have emails, everything happening, and you would be sleep talking. And when I say sleep talking, you would understand what you're talking with your child, what you're doing, but your mind is elsewhere. You're trying to do two things. Your body's so used to doing multiple tasks that you're exactly not in one place. And I think I've missed that time. I should have given myself, the children time. The second thing is possibly I should have had some time for myself. Every day I kind of prioritize every morning what needs to be done. And there's 3 columns. The first column is business. The second column is home front. bills or things that needs to be paid, and going to the bank, things like that, shopping, or a car ticket that's got to be paid. So all those kind of things. And the third thing is a personal self. I just want to go and do my nails, or I just want to lie down and go for a movie, or meet a friend and have some coffee. So those are the three columns, or meet a friend that I've never met for a long while. That always takes a toll, because the first two columns seem to be the majority of your time that you're playing with. So when I kind of re-gauge it every day, you would find the list growing up forever, because you've not taken time for myself. So I think I should have, and I will take time for myself, and I would give more personal time to the child and husband, or meaningful time, and be at home when you ought to be at home. And the third thing is, which I would like to do, is when I'm spending time with the family, I should just kind of sign off everything else, shut the phone, or switch off mind, switch off every electronic gadget, switch it off, and just stay on, even if it's just meant 3 hours. I would definitely do that. So definitely these three things I would like to relook at and try if I could get an opportunity. But life is something you can't go back.
We all do what we think is best at that point of time, isn't it, Jayashree? As Maya Angelou says, you do better when you know better. I think personally, I would say I have been on both sides. I have been in that position where I didn't have any time at all. And like you said, the time that I was giving, I was doing 100 more things. And then there was also a time I gave very limited time, but I was fully there. So, you go through phases and you live and you learn, as they say. That is the important thing. The other thing I wanted to ask you is the fruit of the labor is when you see career and motherhood flourish, right? So every one of us yearns for it. Are there instances when you think you have done justification to both?
Yes. And so if you start looking at career separately and family front, so the success of career is when you know that you're rising up in your career ladder. It could be the self-satisfaction of the work, appreciation from people, feeling gratified that you have done justice to your passion or justice to the knowledge that you've gained. So that's definitely something that I feel I've achieved. Family front is equally important, or actually supersedes career as well, marginally. And that is when you know that at the end of the day, the career, everything is there, not alone for us, but obviously to support our family. So if the family front isn't doing well, your career is not supported in your final, aim of what you wanted to achieve. So talking about the success would mean how well you think you've supported your child, not just in their career. So it's the success in the child's education, academics, not just that, but also in the character of the child. The mother is an important part of building the character of the child, building the child's academics. And most important of all is the mother's role is building the skills for life for the child. There are three different things for motherhood. Academics is a tick box. You would know that you've achieved it because if your children have done. Okay, so a child is great in academics, very good. How about skills for life? Because all at the end of the day is everybody could be having a degree, but there should be some super special skills. And that is something that as a mother, you would introduce your child to at very early stages of development. So that's important. So these are all measured. If you know your child has done well in academics, or you've given enough of skills that they actually go out into the world and do different things to exhibit the development of that skill that you've actually sown in. And number three, most important of all, is the character. There's no point having a great education and great skill if the character loss is there. So the character building is also a mother's role to ensure that the character is built. You would know good character. And how would you know good character is when friends and families and people around you talk about it. And that would mean, your daughter's doing very well. I can't believe she's done this. So it's various things that actually reflect at the end of the spectrum. And personally speaking, I think My gratification and satisfaction came very recently when my daughter got recently married, and when she wanted to do a speech, and it just came out extempore. And she said, "My mother's afraid of many things." She said, "Did you know my mother was a car that runs at 1,000 miles per hour?" And she said, "For some reason, the engine has never stopped." My mother was always afraid of many things. I'm pretty claustrophobic as well. She's afraid of many things, but there's one thing that she's never been afraid of, is motherhood. And if I stand here today, is obviously the credit goes to her. So I think actually to get a feedback or a child expressing that would mean you have actually done some value to the child. So I think both career and development of child, there will be some benchmarks at the end of it to show you actually you've done something good. And hopefully I have, or I'm trying to. There's always improvement.
Thank you, Jayashree. I'm sure you have done so well. I think the testimony comes from the children themselves most of the time, isn't it? The best testimony. So thank you so much. I know you're an educationalist, so you would have noticed that there are positives from staying at home and parenting, which we have already discussed. As a career woman, what elements of the former can we incorporate as career women?
The greatest advantage that people, mothers staying at home have, other than people going to work, is organization. The time to organize, a calm mind, because a calm mind reflects into the way we actually support children. Because if we ourselves are kind of helter-skelter, not sure, and running around, we will only end up running our life with our children as well. So I think it's important to absorb, calm ourselves down, pace ourselves a bit more, slightly slower, so that the family can actually pick up the pace. And you just align yourself to the speed of your family, because you can run, but not necessarily children also can run with us. So I think the advantage people, mothers have at home is the calmness that they can bring home, the organization, the clear thought, because there's only a few things that they actually focus on. Working mothers have multiple things, multiple people to satisfy the expectations. So I think kind of slightly marginalizing it and bringing that calmness and organization, or kind of reprioritizing and knocking off things that aren't going to move a milestone for the family, would give us more time to work on the most important things. So I think that's essentially what I think I would suggest.
I couldn't agree with you more. As I mentioned, I have very close friends who have given up their professions and been at home. And I think they're calm and slow paced for sure compared to us. We're always thinking about what the next thing to do. At least a few years back, for definitely there was that person who is always thinking what next box to tick, what next ladder to climb. So I think that is definitely one thing we can learn, and they teach children, and they themselves, because they themselves practice it, they know how to have a good time, how to enjoy that small things, how to enjoy life. And I think that's something we can definitely learn from them. You as a person have obviously breezed through both. So what are the top tips to make mothering better and yet not lose sight of the career, Jayashree, then?
I would, as I said, the first thing is you always have to have your dream and desire, no matter what, that's got to exist. And we should not lose sight of that at any cost. I would suggest that the top tip for mothers would be to definitely spend time with children. Children rely on parents, at least for a particular few years. That's the time when the development of body, soul, and mind happens, including the brains. And if we can get it right in the initial years where you can hold hands with them, I think they would improve or grow themselves. But that initial years, support has got to be there. The second most important thing is when you give children the time, give them the time completely, 100%. As I was suggesting, if it means switch off the phone, switch off the phone. As a rule, we'll need to do that and practice that. When you start practicing that, that 1 hour is particularly yours, especially during lockdown. I absolutely enjoyed, because it was a total shutdown. I really enjoyed for the first 2 weeks because I knew that there was nothing happening. The world stopped. But my world opened. I had the time to spend with the family. So you really need to lock yourself down once in a way, get into that little cocoon of lockdown situation and spend time with family. Another important thing is to give yourself your own time. You need to schedule it. And I think instead of putting it as a third column as a priority, you need to slightly move it forward as an evidence that comes first as well. What I did was always kept it at the third stroke. Why not shift that to the first? You don't need to do it, but you at least know you've given yourself the first priority, at least on paper. And then you can kind of everything else comes later. Important thing is when it comes to work how many hours you want, but I think it needs to stop there. For example, if it comes from me as well, when I'm in the car and you're all on a happy excursion trip to the beach. For the first 15 minutes, we're fine. And immediately there's a phone call. And then the whole, the trajectory turns towards something else. And then there's an argument. And then there's the temper. And then everything changes. And then you have the children sitting behind in the car, listening to music and wondering what's happened. And they're lost. So I think, when you're off work, you're off work. And I think that's a no-go. And when you're at home, you need to be at home. You need to create yourself, prioritizing yourself as well. And one more important thing is you should never compare, because the moment you start comparing with another woman or this or that mother, I think that's the worst damage that you do, self-damage. Because our happiness and successes and crosses are not the same with everybody else. So I guess you need to just look into when you're driving a car, you just look in front, you don't look left and right, you have an accident. So I think the focus is not to be lost, just you, your family, and of course the outside world as well. And I think must have fun, and don't leave fun for the last, because only when you have fun, you're fulfilled and happy. And when you're happy, you want to be more successful. So it's like a circle of life for happiness. This is what I would advise moms. But as I've read some, it says you've got to refuel yourself. In the aircraft, you first kind of fit yourself with the mask before you actually fit it for others. So there's no point running behind your husband or your children if you are not happy self within. And only then you can actually extend that happiness and joy and peace and calm and organization to the others within the house. Yes.
Thank you, Jayashree. And it's very, very important, which I never did before, is if it's not in your diary, it doesn't happen, isn't it? Unless you put the time off for yourself, or to, like you said, to do the nails, or, read that book, or to have coffee with someone you want, it never happens. And it's still, sometimes you miss it, because women, I think some of you have been conditioned. Self-care is almost like selfish. We tend to put everything else above it. And I think it is something a lot of people are now talking about and re-emerging, thinking, okay, we have to put ourselves first. People who know me, they know that work in progress is a long way to go. But I am definitely trying my best now to switch off a bit more and find time for myself, because otherwise we'll crash soon and you're no good to no one if that happens. So it's important. Thank you so much, Jayashree. In your opinion, what is the most important piece of advice you have for mothers who are pursuing a career today?
As I said, career is as important as family. However, the family will kind of take a little bit of a priority. If your passion is about your career, you need to really follow that passion. You could delay it. You could sort out other priorities, but I think you should always be flexible to come back to it. And I think you need to really journey towards it, because it's a self-seeking happiness. If that's what it is, it's self-seeking happiness. Though not monetary to everybody. In the satisfaction that you get of going to work and the happiness, is far more, there are more intangibles in it. So definitely follow your dream. And if the workplace isn't something that is supporting your career, you could still follow your dream from home. You can do things, you can find out ideas, and the world's a much bigger open space, and you can find opportunities to be more self-sufficient and do things, and be more entrepreneurial is what I would say, and follow that dream path in a different direction. At the end of the day, that satisfaction, happiness is from within. So if you make yourself happy by following your dream and not letting go of it, is what I would say as a top tip for people who want to pursue their career.
Thanks, Jayashree. So much truth in that. That thing I would say is there's no common recipe for everyone, isn't it?
Sure.
Different strokes, different people. If you want to hold a career, I don't think anything should stop you. These days, there's a lot of talk about balanced life. Balanced life doesn't mean you're always giving 50% to a career, 50% to personal life. There are times, like if you have a young baby, of course you're going to prioritize that and give more time and more space and more energy to that. Like that, when you start a new job or climb up the career ladder, you will have to give a bit more time and energy and effort
Yes.
there. So it doesn't mean you're not balancing. There is a misunderstanding when you're talking about balance that you have to give exactly 50-50. Otherwise, you're not doing justice to your parenthood or as a spouse or in the career. But you have to reprioritize, like going back to where we started, isn't it? And readjust accordingly. I think the secret is not feeling guilty about it at that particular moment, and knowing you can always readjust your life when this phase is finished. It is so important to know that as well. If you had to go back repeating this, would you restart your journey the same way, and what would you do differently or better?
I would definitely love to restart it, given the knowledge that if I look back of the blunders, of the successes, and how I could improve on from them, I'd love to go back. And it would mean that I would definitely better and possibly give more time to the child. And I would get the right people in to do the right job. If it's home front, I'd have the right people, because it's kind of empowering people to do things that I don't need to be involved in, because we want everything to be perfect. And I think good is the enemy of perfect. So if it's good enough, that's fine. So I possibly get in people to help with many things, and would focus on things that mean most to me. Everything is important to me, but I would like to do the ones that nobody else can replace me. For example, being a mother. Only I can do that. Only the mothers can do that. So that I would keep the best for myself and organize. I would definitely, cut down on the wish list that I have. You always want to do a lot. It's not about doing a lot. It's about just doing a little bit, but the very best. That gives you satisfaction. And I would possibly do that as well. So yes.
I think if I had to go back, I think it would be delegation, collaboration, and self-care. Three things. Delegate the things what other people will do better than us, and also it will give us time to focus on what really matters to us, and collaborate with others to make them understand. When we collaborate with our partners, with our family, with our extended world, how everyone is a winner. And the other thing is, of course, you have to provide to others. First, you have to look after yourself, wear your oxygen mask first. So I think, yes, we all would do things a bit differently when we go back. But hey, we have done so far not so badly. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about this today. As they say, it's all good what ends good. One last question I want to ask you is, what can mothers pursuing a career do to manage time better? What are your top tips?
The only way, this is the only rule that I followed, is you'll definitely have to plan ahead. But it can't be 100% planning, because life doesn't exist. It's ideal, but it will not happen. You need to accept that as well. You cannot stick to your plans and be rigid. A plan is in place to have some sight of what's happening. It can't go to plan, but you can follow the plan. So I have a plan. As I even talked today, I have a plan for the whole year. I exactly know what's happening in the academy for the whole 1 year. And I then break it down into monthly. And then I have a day-to-day breakdown. This works for the business. But whether it works for personal life, it will not. And that's where the flexibility comes. So I think it should be a 70-30. 70% of planning and 30% of giving that flexibility to kind of reschedule it, and planning every day. As I said, the 3 columns, planning every day and moving it accordingly will help.
Yeah, I say plan well, but also plan to fail. That is the problem, isn't it? We don't want to fail and we don't keep any room to maneuver. So I think planning to fail is the biggest planning, I think, when it comes to personal life, to be honest. Thank you so much, Jayashree. It was really interesting discussion. Can I ask you, what has been your experience with the talk show itself?
As I said, at the very onset, I said the first thing was self-reflection. Self-reflection and seeing actually, you think you've been struggling every day, but actually you're not struggling on ground. You've actually risen. You're up on top, and your journey. Every woman, not just me, but every mother would have had their own journeys, and everybody is on top of a very huge mountain. When you look back, you know the journey. And I think this talk show has actually given me the opportunity to look back at the immense work, just not me, but all mothers have. It's been a self-reflection of what women and motherhood have put in to the making of families and the future, and how much we've whatever we've done and how effective it is for the future of many others, our children especially.
So thank you. Any suggestion or any comments on as a speaker?
Oh, as a speaker, I read a very beautiful poem by Khalil Gibran, and I thought that's nice, especially for women and generally for anybody to think about, is how we're compared to a river. Human life is compared to a river. And as the river goes through, the river is afraid. Before the river joins into the sea, the ocean, the river is very afraid, is scared, because it's come from the peak of the mountain, gone through valleys and villages happily. But then when it's going into and falling into the ocean, it's afraid that it's going to disappear. But it's actually, it shouldn't, as it drops into the ocean, it's actually not disappearing, but it's becoming the ocean. So I think that's a very eye-opening statement, because we might think of our past. You can't go back thinking life is comfortable. You have the ocean in front. You're afraid you're going to get lost, but you're not going to get lost. You're not going to disappear. You are going to become it, something bigger. So I think it was it's a great take for life. And I think that's how I've personally felt when I've lost hope, when, you kind of lost your path. You've seen the comforts that you've had, and you look back, you see you're losing, you're afraid, you drop into the ocean, and you actually feel you're in a much bigger place. You become big and tall. So that's what I think it is, whether career or at home, this is general human fundamentals that I think helps.
Thank you, Jayashree. It's been a very interesting chat. I'm sure we will remember a lot of things going forward, and I hope it helps women who are pursuing their careers, thinking of pursuing their careers, or who are retired but helping other people pursue their careers. Following tradition, I'm now going to announce the next episode. Next week, the 3rd of April, we will be talking about health impact of intimate partner violence, domestic violence, or NPD abuse by Dr. Maria Ali. She's a BA in social work, Masters in International Child Welfare, and PhD in Human Rights. I'm so looking forward to Maria Ali coming and speaking about a very important subject. Now, over to Dr. Bala to give the vote of thanks. He's Dr. Anton Kanagaswatai. We call him lovingly Dr. Bala.
Thank you for asking me to give the vote of thanks. It is an honor indeed to talk on Mother's Day about mothers and the excellent speaker. Firstly, thank you, Jayashree Anthony, and for your excellent talk. Talking about balancing motherhood and career, is an awesome task. Doing it, an awesome task, and talking about it, it came from the lion's mouth. Doing both excellently. And you mentioned that your daughter is getting married, but you don't look like that.
She's married already. Sorry.
So, how did you manage doing both and staying young? That is another skill, it looks like. And the intricacies of and the challenges managing their motherhood, you brought out very well. I always say that when I hear a presentation, I can tell whether this person has the experience of doing the thing and then talking, or is talking from books. In this case, I think you have a child and you have a mother working. So it came across beautifully. You brought out all the facts beautifully. And in addition to the speaker, it is, I would like to see it as a vote of thanks for motherhood, the subject. And yeah, I think motherhood starts the day that you know that you are pregnant. From that day onwards, the mothers do a lot of sacrifice. People who are having hay fever, they stop taking their medication. And occasional party alcohol, they forgo it. Even smokers can quit smoking once they know they are pregnant. And there's an emotional attachment I see different to the attachment that fathers have. So I used to think this is because they had that child within them and brought out. We don't have that kind of experience. Therefore, the quality of the emotional attachment, I see a lot of difference in it. Sometimes there's an irrational emotional attachment as well. And so it is, you're in a special position as mothers. And yeah, it is a privileged, very challenging position that is not given to others. So thank you very much for all the mothers and Menaca for again organizing this host to come and talk from real life experience, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bala. Thank you so much for that. And it is Dr. Anton Kanagasabai.
My middle name, Tamil name is Bala.
Thank you so much for an excellent vote of thanks. And thank you so much, Jayashree, once again for an excellent discussion. For people who are on the Zoom, please hold on. We are going to be allowing you to ask questions from Jayashree. We will be seeing you again on the 3rd of April, talking about health impact of intimate partner violence, domestic violence, NPD abuse by Dr. Maria Ali, who has a keen interest in this subject. Please do help us, support us by subscribing to the channel Meet Menaca to make the impact what we want across the globe. Until we see you next time, it has come to that time of the day to say goodbye. Stay safe, be happy, and keep smiling.